Our last lesson looked at how to find the percent of a number. In this lesson, we're going to have the percent, but we're going to need to find the whole. And so your learning target is going to be I can find the whole amount by using the part and percent and equations. So a school soccer team won 80% of its matches. Out of all of the matches played, the team won 40 matches. How many matches did the soccer team play? So we're going to solve this problem any way you use. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the double line bar diagram just to give you guys that visual, and then I'll set it up as an equation as well. And so if I have 100%, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break my 100%. I'm going to count, I'm going to see what I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So each one of my percents is going to be equal to 20%. So I have 20, 40, 60, 80%. And so now the value I'm going to find is I'm going to see what, if I have 80%, what does M equal? So I have 80% and 40, and I'm solving for M. Well, here's the nice thing. I know what 80% is. 80% is going to be 40. And so now I have my part to whole relationship. So here, if I have 40 and I count, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, this one is going to be set up by 10. So it's going to be 10, 20, 30, 40. Oh, and M equals 50. So M is going to equal 50. So that's how I can use a double line diagram and how to read a double line diagram to help me find it. If I were to use my equation, so I need to find the total. So what it would be is I would go ahead and I would turn my percent into a decimal. So I would turn it into 0.8. And then I already know my part. So my part is going to be times 40. And when I get that, I should end up with M. And so when I go ahead, oh, no, I did that wrong. Let me reset. Because it's not going to be times 40. It's going to be times M. Because M is going to be the total, but I already know my value. So it's going to be 0.8 M equals 40. And so to solve for this, I'm going to divide both sides by 0.8. And when I solve, and I divide both sides by 0.8, I'm going to just plug it in, see what I get. I end up with M equals 50. So when I set up my equation, the variable is going to be next to the percent. So that, and then here's my part. So my total is actually going to be next to the percent because I multiply percent by the whole to get my part. Okay. If we move into our look back, it says write an equation to find the total number of matches played by soccer team. Let M represent the total number of matches. And so if we take a look, we just did that. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it again, just so you can see in case you missed it. So our equation is going to be 8/10 M equals 40. And then what I would do is I would divide both sides by 8/10 to solve it. And then I have M equals 50. So let's go ahead and move into your visual learning for today. And so if we take a look at your first problem, it says Bree scored 90% on her math test. Out of the total possible points on the test, her score was 135 points. How many possible points were there on the test? So again, here's my double line diagram that I can use to show it. So I have my 90% and I have my 135. And what I would do is I would just figure out what each point represents. So I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I would figure out how much each one represents. And so each one is going to represent 15 points. And so 130 plus 15 would give me 150. 150 possible points on the test. If I use the equation, which I think most of you are going to prefer to use the equation, notice that I set up my percent. It's 90% times the total possible points. But we don't write 90% as 90%. We write it as a decimal. So it would be 0.9. They wrote it as 90. I'm going to go ahead and drop off that 0. So it's going to be 0.9 percent equals 135. And then, or I guess it's points possible. I divide both sides by 0.9. And when I divide both sides by 0.9, I end up with 150 possible points on the test. All right, so if we move into the convince me, Bree took another math test and scored 152 points, which was 95% of the total possible points on the test. Write an equation and write and solve an equation to find the total number of possible points P on the test. So here's the nice thing. My percent is going to be written as a decimal, so it's 0.95. So 0.95. P stands in for points possible. And when I multiply 100 or 95 by P, I end up with 152. So P is going to equal, because again, I'm dividing both sides. Remember that here I'm dividing both sides by the 95 hundredths. And so when I do that, again, you guys are going to use calculator because I'm concerned today about your skill of finding part of a whole and not your decimal fluency. So I would type in 152 divided by 0.95. And when I do 152 divided by 0.95, I end up with P equals 160. And then I can check it. And here's the nice thing with the calculator. I can go ahead and check it. So I can do 0.95 times 160, and I should get 152. And when I plug that in the calculator, that's exactly what I get. So I get P equals 160. All right, so let's move into your guided practice. So 200 is what number of 40? So remember, here's the question for you guys. Is 200 the same as 2 times 100%? So what that means is I have 100 more percent than that original number. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's my 200% equals 40. So to find n, I look at, okay, if that's 200%, 100% is going to be 20. And so 100% is going to be 20. 200% is 20 of 20 is 40. So each mark here, if you look on my double line diagram, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So each one represents 10. So each mark is going to represent an increase of 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So here's what we're going to do to write that equation. I would take my percent is 200%, so it's going to be a whole number. So it's going to be 2 times n, or 2 times m, p, q, r, whatever you're using to represent that total. So it's going to be 2 times the total is going to be equal to 40. And so here n is going to be equal to 20. So 200% of what number is 40? 20. All right, so moving into your guided practice, it says Tony participated in 6 races or 10% of the event. Do the 6 races represent the part, the percent, or the whole? Tell what the others represent. And so if we take a look at what we have, well, I have 10% of the event. So the 10% represents percent. Hopefully that one was pretty, oh yeah, duh, that represents percent because it's got the percent sign. And then the 6 races. So the 6 races are representing the part. And then the events, come up here and write, the events represent the whole. Because I only know part of it, I only know the 6 races, I don't know the rest of the events. All right, 40% of what number is 80? And so if we take a look here, here's my 40% is going to be 80. And so I would look at how many lines I would have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I use my double line diagram, well, if I have 10 lines and here's 80 and I start counting, so if I did 10, 20, 30, 40, that doesn't work. So I could do 20, 40, 60, 80. Oh, here's 100. So I can mark that with 100. Well, that's 100's 50% and is equal to 200. If I show this mathematically, what I would do is I would do 0.4, so 4/10 times, I'll just do T for total, equals, I guess it's N. Sorry, they wanted N. I didn't see that. Let me go back and put that in. 4/10 N equals 80. So again, to solve, I would do 4/10 divided by both sides. and then n is going to be equal to 200. To do my check, right, to do my proof, I guess I need to draw the proof arrow. To do my proof, I would do 4/10 times 80, or sorry, times 200 equals 80. And here's the nice thing about doing your calculator, that's going to make the check a lot easier. So I have 80 equals 80. So my equation is balanced. All right, moving in to there. I don't need to do checks on these numbers. It would be a good idea to do it with your calculator, but I'm not necessarily, unless you're writing an equation. If you're writing an equation, you need to do a check. So if we take a look, let's do a couple more problems just to get that practice piece in for you guys. So I'm going to start with number 4. 125% of what number is 45? So 125% I would write as 1.25. And then I'm just going to do n equals 45. And then I divide both sides. So I'm showing you that thinking, that mathematical thinking that I'm doing. I divide both sides by 1 and 25/100, and I'm left with n equals 36. And then I do my proof, right? So I'm going to go back and do my proof. And when I do my proof, I have 1 and 25/100 times 36 equals 45. Well, I have 45 equals 45. So my equation balances out. All right, so there was number 4 done for you. So you're not going to be doing number 4. I should see your answer and work there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do number 5. 10% of what number is 57? So it would be 0.1 n equals 57. So n is going to equal 570. And so that was going to be my answer. N equals 570. So using the calculator there. And so I'd like for you guys, so you know, have a couple more examples. One where the number is the percent's greater than a whole, and then just another number practice. I'd like for you guys to go ahead and do the rest of 3 through 8. So let me pull up so you guys have that down. So you're going to do the rest of 3 through 8. And then on the back side, I would like for you to please do problem 10, 11, 13, 14, and 15. Those are the problems I'd like for you to do on the back.